Good afternoon and welcome to Cool Springs. Today is Wednesday, May the 27th, 2026, and this is our final session on the book Song of Solomon. Today we're looking at chapters 7 and 8 of Song of Solomon. Song of Solomon opened up with the first two chapters. We looked at the Shunammite girl, which was a way of saying a local girl from Jerusalem who has caught the eye of Solomon, and they're interested in each other, and they've gone through the courtship. They've had the wedding processional and the honeymoon in chapters 3 and 4. Then last week we looked at chapters 5 and 6, where now they're officially married and essentially the honeymoon is over. And she has issues with the fact that she's totally devoted to him, but because he has other wives and concubines, some of which he had before he married her, she knew from the get-go she was always going to have to share him. But he's added even more, and there's been some sort of a disruption in the relationship, common to every couple. The honeymoon phase just doesn't last forever. And they ran into some bumps in their marital life. And now today, as we're looking at chapters 7 and 8, we're seeing the marriage over time between Solomon and this particular bride, and how they're rediscovering the passion, the love that they have for each other, but how they're also, as they're aging, beginning to realize the beauty of a relationship that doesn't just depend on physical satisfaction. It depends on admiration and respect, mutual respect for each other, and seeing the inner beauty. So for chapter 7, we're seeing the groom largely talking here, and he's been married to this girl for a while, and he's recognizing the character qualities that are much more attractive than when she was his brand new bride, and she was young and in the full vigor of health and looked so pretty. Now that she's matured and the relationship's gone on for a while, he's now realizing that beauty is way more than skin deep in this girl, that she has some very admirable qualities. And so the groom opens up by saying, "How beautiful are your feet in sandals, O prince's daughter. The curves of your hips are like jewels, the work of the hands of an artist. Your navel is like a round goblet which never lacks mixed wine. Your belly is like a heap of wheat fenced about with lilies. Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle." You notice he's gone from the tip of her toes, and he is progressively working his way up her body. Even with age and possibly having born children and the changes that brings to a woman's body, he's still seeing her as beautiful, even if she's got stretch marks, even if the hair is starting to gray. He's literally going from the tip of her toes to the top of her head, and he's finding things to praise her for. Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. Your neck is like a tower of ivory. Your eyes like the pools in Heshbon by the gate of Bath Rabbim. Your nose is like the tower of Lebanon, which faces toward Damascus. Your head crowns you like Carmel, and the flowing locks of your head are like purple threads. He has just literally gone from toe to head. We would like to say from head to toe, but he started at the feet and worked his way up to admire his wife's beauty. How beautiful and how delightful you are. That's verse 6. My love, with all your charms. Not just her physical charms, not just her physical beauty, but the character she's exhibiting. Your stature is like a palm tree, and your breasts are like its clusters. I said, I'll climb the palm tree. I'll take hold of its fruit stalks. Oh, may your breasts be like clusters of the vine, and the fragrance of your breath like apples, and your mouth like the best wine. It goes down smoothly, my beloved. The best wine, when you drink it, would go down very, very smoothly, flowing gently through the lips of those who fall asleep. He is admiring her beauty. And if she's hearing this, she can't help but be consumed with the affirming words of her husband that, yes, she knows he's not totally devoted to her like she is to him, but he sees things that are very admirable about her. And so from verses 10 through 13, this is the bride now responding back to the groom's praise. I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. She's happy to know that he wants her, that he desires her. Every wife wants her husband to desire and appreciate and admire her and want to be with her, and the bride realizes he really does want me. Come, my beloved, let's go out into the country. Let's spend the night in the villages. Let us rise early and go to the vineyards. Let us see whether the vine has budded and the blossoms have opened, and whether the pomegranates have bloomed. There I will give you my love. She's inviting him to go to a special place out in nature where they could have marital relations, where they could enjoy their oneness of flesh. There I will give you my love. The mandrakes have given forth fragrance, and over our doors are the choicest fruits, both new and old, which I have saved up for you, my beloved. The reference to mandrakes there, from very ancient times, the mandrake plant was considered to be an aphrodisiac, a love potion. Ancient peoples thought that maybe it increased fertility. You may remember the story in Genesis of where Leah, who was Jacob's first wife, but she knows that her father tricked Jacob into marrying her, and Jacob has always favored Rachel. And so Leah has been able to produce child after child after child, and Rachel has been barren. And by now, this has gone on for several years. And Leah's oldest son, Reuben, who's now probably at least middle school to early teenage age, has gone out and found some mandrake plants, and he's brought them to his mother. And when you think about it, it's sweet, and it's also incredibly sad at the same time, that the fact that Jacob is playing favorites among his wives, and that everybody, including the children, know that Jacob prefers Rachel. Here's Reuben, the oldest child in the family, knowing that daddy doesn't love mama as much as he loves his other wife and his concubines. He's trying to help mama out by going and finding these mandrakes and bringing them to his mama, in the hope that these plants, which were thought to have characteristics of being a love potion, would help daddy to have the feelings for his mama. She obviously doesn't need it for fertility. She's already by this time had several children. But he wants his father to love his mother, and so he's brought her these plants. And Rachel hears about it, and she goes to her sister and basically wants her to give her, or at least let her buy, the mandrakes off of her. Why? Because Rachel at this point in her life is still barren, and it's eating her up inside that even though Jacob loves her more than he cares about Leah or the two concubine girls, as the sisters have given their servants to Jacob in this baby breeding contest, Rachel still feels the yearning of, I haven't been able to produce a child for my husband. Maybe this love potion will help. And Leah's response to Rachel, they're really very catty with each other at this moment. Leah's response to her is it not enough that you stole my husband? Well, that's not technically what happened. Jacob had been working for 7 years thinking that Laban was going to give him Rachel, and instead, when the wedding night came, Laban pulled a switcheroo in the tent and put Leah in there because nobody had come asking for Leah's hand in marriage. So Leah's response is it enough that you've taken my husband, his affection, Now you want my son's mandrakes too? And Rachel cuts a deal with her sister saying, tonight, so apparently it was Rachel's turn to be with Jacob. Tonight, he'll be with you because of the mandrakes. Because she's thinking, okay, tonight Jacob will go be with Leah, but the next night he's all mine. Because she's counting on the plant and the supposed love potion to solve her fertility issue. And of course, what Genesis lets us know is that Leah has to go out and tell Jacob, this is the deal we cut, so tonight you're with me. And Leah conceives another child, another son. Rachel's mandrakes don't do her any good. It's still a long, long time before she will finally conceive a child. So here in Song of Solomon, many generations later, they still are looking at the mandrake as being a love potion type of plant. And here is the bride saying that the mandrakes have given forth their fragrances. This plant is now in its full bloom, and she's wanting to go have a marital moment with her husband, and she's hoping for it to produce children, which Solomon will have many, many children from many, many of his wives. The mandrakes have given forth fragrance, and over our doors are all choice fruits, both new and old, which I have saved up for you, my beloved. That last phrase, she's saved up for her beloved. She has kept herself chaste and pure, and we're going to see a little bit more of that as we move now into chapter 8 of Song of Solomon. This unnamed bride has been very chaste and proper. She hasn't been loose. She hasn't exposed herself to any whispers of improper, immoral conduct. She has saved herself up to give her whole heart to her husband. And she's married to Solomon. And Solomon gives her part of his heart. One of the biggest things about the book Song of Solomon is that we see the bride doing it right, following God's intention for marriage, that one man and one woman would be united together. She does not have a wandering eye. She's not looking for love in all the wrong places. She wants just to be loved by Solomon and to love him back. It is Solomon who is failing to do what God wanted him to do. Solomon is the one who is being disobedient here. He's not just being disobedient in multiplying wives for himself. Remember earlier we talked about Deuteronomy 17, the rules for a king. They were warned in advance by Moses that they needed to make sure that when the time came to have a king, that they would choose only one of their fellow Israelites, not a foreigner. That person had to be someone who was willing to submit himself to the priest, make a copy of God's word, and read from it all the days of his life, so that he would live his life not just the way he governed the country, but that he would live his personal life in a way that pleased God. And those rules in Deuteronomy included not multiplying wives for yourselves, not multiplying horses and chariots, not going back to Egypt, and worshiping God and God alone. Well, over the course of his life, what did Solomon do? He started out so well. He wanted to follow what his father, King David, had told him about being faithful to God. He built the temple. But his first choice in a wife was Pharaoh's daughter. He went right to Egypt for bride number one out of the 1,000 women he's ultimately going to have. He didn't lead those wives to become followers of his God. He married the daughters of all the different kings that surrounded his nation instead of trusting God. And instead of leading those wives to worship the one true God, he let them continue in their pagan ways until they influenced him to where he started worshiping at their pagan altars. Solomon disobeyed God in every way. He multiplied wives for himself. He multiplied chariots for himself. He turned back to Egypt and to the kingdoms surrounding him for protection. He just kept breaking rule after rule after rule. He never fully gave this girl and this particular bride not named in Scripture, as most of Solomon's wives are not named. The ones that get named are the ones who have borne children who are involved in the story of who's competing for the throne. This girl was the right kind of bride, the right kind of bride that God wanted him as king and any other Jewish man to have. Choose somebody who worships the same God you do. The Shunammite girl, because Shunem is a short name for Jerusalem. She's a Jewish girl. She's not from some of the surrounding nations. We learned earlier in Song of Solomon that she's a working girl. She's not born into a life of luxury. She has to go out and work the vineyards. That's why she had the tanned skin. She's hardworking. She's industrious. He's now seeing in chapter 8, over the course of time, as the marriage relationship has matured, as he's seen her day after day, year after year, in many situations, and he's recognizing her character and her beauty. And now, the last chapter of Song of Solomon, there's this dialogue between the bride and the groom and the chorus, where he's just affirmed her with these words of love in chapter 7, and she's responding to that. Oh, that you were like a brother to me, who nursed at my mother's breast. If I found you outdoors, I would kiss you. No one would despise me either. I would lead you and bring you into the house of my mother, who used to instruct me. I would give you spiced wine to drink from the juice of my pomegranates. She's describing there that their relationship is such that she wished he was like a brother to her, because then she could publicly show affection. One of the customs in Middle Eastern cultures, and in frankly some European cultures, particularly when it comes to people who have status and position, royalty, or people who are in government, is that public displays of affection are discouraged. Even in our military, when a soldier, sailor, airman, marine, guardian is in uniform, there are rules about how much affection they can show, even if they're like coming back from a deployment and they're greeting their families after a long separation. This bride here is saying, in some ways, I wish you were like my brother, because then I could just be as openly affectionate as I want to be, and nobody would think ill of me for it. But because she is a bride, she has to practice some restraint, but she's still yearning for that physical relationship. Look at verse 3. Let his left hand be under my head, and his right hand embrace me. She's describing a husband and wife about to be intimate with each other. In the last chapter, they were both looking forward to, he's admiring her from the tip of her toes to the top of her head. He's admiring her beauty, and she's saying, let's go out into nature and find a nice private place where we're enjoying nature and we're enjoying our couple relationship. And she's yearning for that here too. I want you to swear, O daughters of Jerusalem, do not arouse or awaken my love until she pleases. The chorus then responds, who is this coming up from the wilderness leaning on her beloved? Solomon and his bride have gone out. They've gone into one of their gardens or vineyards. They've enjoyed their marital moments. Now they're coming back into the populated areas, and the chorus is seeing them enjoying being in public together. And the bride is extolling the fact that she and her husband are close to each other emotionally, as well as they have been close to each other physically. Beneath the apple tree I awakened you. There your mother was in labor with you. There she was in labor and gave you birth. Put me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm. For love is as strong as death. Jealousy is as severe as Sheol. Its flashes are like flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord. She's going to love him all the days of her life, and she's going to love him beyond the grave. She's anticipating that one day one of us is going to die. And usually, not only in this relationship, but in most cultures, usually it's the husband who dies first because he tends to be at least a little bit older. And she's affirming the fact that this love is so deep and so strong that it'll last even longer than the grave. That love is as strong as death, that she's never going to stop feeling about him the way she feels about him now that they're alive and together and still enjoying their marriage. She goes on in verse 7. Many waters cannot quench love, nor will rivers overflow it. If a man were to give all the riches of his house for love, it will be utterly despised. Now, since she's married to Solomon, she happens to be married to a man who has unlimited wealth. But money can't buy you love. What Solomon needs to see is how utterly devoted this bride is to him. She absolutely cherishes and adores her relationship with her husband, and she worships the same God that he does. Unlike hundreds of his other wives, these daughters of kings from pagan countries that he's married, who have helped turn his heart away from God, he's without excuse for his failure to stay loyal to God because he's got a godly wife, and he's only given her part of his heart when she's doing it the right way. She's worshiping God. She's staying true to her values. She's staying true to her faith. And she's utterly devoted to her husband. And now the chorus chimes in again in verses 8 and 9. And this time, the chorus evidently includes both male members of the city of Jerusalem and the bride's girlfriends, just from what's in the text. We have a little sister, and she has no breasts. What shall we do for our sister on the day when she is spoken for? If she's a wall, we will build on her a battlement of silver. But if she's a door, we will barricade her with planks of cedar. Early on in discussing the book Song of Solomon, I told you the story of how when I was a young person growing up in my home church, they were teaching us the books of the Bible and having Bible drills. And because I won so frequently, they wouldn't let me play anymore. They thought they could just appease me by letting me call out the verses. But it just made me angry because they were basically saying, you're so good at this that you can't even play. And that didn't happen to me when I played youth sports. If you were good at sports, they would rotate around so that all the kids got to play. But they didn't take out the star athletes. You would just move from one position to another, or maybe you'd only have to sit out a couple of innings or a quarter or a small amount of time to give everybody a fair chance to play. And so because my church wouldn't let me play anymore, I got even, or maybe ahead, by choosing passages like this one. And Song of Solomon 8:8 was a particular favorite of mine because I knew, okay, whichever kid gets it, boy or girl, they got to step forward and they've got to read it out loud so that they have proved to everybody that, yes, they found the right verse. And Song of Solomon 8:8, we have a little sister and she has no breast. Generally, the person reading it got no further than that, to where whoever was the teacher or the chaperone at the moment would call a halt to, you don't have to read any further. What that is here in the scriptures, it's the bride's brothers. Apparently, either her father is long since gone, and so her brothers are responsible for her. The same brothers who earlier in Song of Solomon got mad at her, and so to punish her because the males were in charge, they were just going to teach her a lesson. They insisted that she go work in the fields so that she would get suntanned and wouldn't look like a young lady who was being raised with wealth, because the ones who didn't have to work had the creamy skin, and the ones who had tan lines, like I'll show you with my watch here, were obviously working class, from the wrong side of the tracks type people. Well, these brothers are saying, we have a little sister and she has no breast. What do we do if somebody comes and wants a quarter? And the response back is, if she's a wall, we'll build on her a battlement of silver. But if she's a door, we'll barricade her with planks of cedar. The guys there are acting like the chastity police. If she's a wall, in other words, if she is being a proper young woman who isn't dressing seductively, isn't out there flirting and trying to attract attention to men, isn't putting herself in situations where somebody might take advantage of her. If she's being chaste, she's being pure. That's what being a wall means there. That they're going to take care of her and make sure that nobody abuses her. And by contrast there, but if she's a door, doors can be closed, doors can be cracked open a little bit, or doors can be wide open. So the response here is, if she's being properly chaste and pure and not out there dressing seductively and trying to attract too much sexual attention to herself, then we'll take care of her. But if she's a little too open, a little too free, if she's out there dressing inappropriately, that sort of thing, we'll see to it that she is protected, that she's never left without a male protector. We'll barricade her with planks of cedar. In other words, we'll see to it that she stays pure. That's what those verses are really about. Verse 10, the bride starts talking again. And she's defending her honor. She's telling the world, I was a wall, and my breasts were like towers. Then I became in his eyes as one who finds peace. Solomon had a vineyard at Baal Hamon. He entrusted the vineyard to caretakers. Each one was to bring 1,000 shekels of silver for its fruit. My very own vineyard is at my disposal. The 1,000 shekels are for you, Solomon, and 200 are for those who take care of its fruit. She's saying that I was pure. I was chaste. I was proper. That I saved myself for marriage. Solomon doesn't have to worry about her flirting around with other men. She has kept herself for him. When she says, my vineyard was my own to give, she's talking about her body. She's saying, I saved myself for marriage. And it's not just girls who are supposed to save themselves for marriage. Boys, young men are supposed to be chaste and honorable and to save themselves for marriage as well. This bride can confidently say, I did it the right way, that I was entitled to my white wedding dress, because before, she didn't flirt with other men. During the courtship, she was Solomon's and Solomon's alone. During the marriage, over the course of time, she has remained totally loyal and faithful to Solomon and Solomon alone. The groom now responds, O you who sit in the gardens, my companions are listening for your voice. Let me hear it. And the bride responds, hurry, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or a young stag on the mountains of spices. She's celebrating Solomon's strength, because remember these symbols of animals and plants that have been throughout Song of Solomon. We might not think it's a compliment to say that your bride looks like a horse, but to them it was a big compliment, because the horse was a beautiful animal, but it was also a very useful animal and a very strong animal. And the stag, the gazelles leaping about on the mountains, were very useful animals, very graceful, but also strong. And here is the bride complimenting back her husband over the course of time, saying, baby, you're still the one for me. Hurry, my beloved, be like a gazelle or a young stag on the mountains of spices. After all this time, she's still attracted to him and him alone. And God's standard for marriage is that one man and one woman commit themselves to each other for life. And as she has mentioned in today's section, she knows she's going to love him even if death separates them physically, that she'll never lose the love that she has for him. It's a love story, but it's also a strong indication and a good reason for it to be in the Bible about what God intends for marriage to be. That husbands and wives should be totally devoted to each other underneath the umbrella of Christ, and that it's all right to celebrate your loved one's physical qualities. In fact, they need to hear that affirmation that I don't care what the world thinks. I just want to know that you find me attractive, not just for physical looks, but for the inner character, for the beauty of the soul. We're all either going to die young or we're going to grow old and the hair's going to turn gray, or the hair's going to disappear and the wrinkles are going to appear, and all sorts of things will start to go wrong with your physical body. But the relationship attraction, those two souls joined together, being soulmates, overcomes whatever changes happen to your physical body. That love can and does endure for the lifetime of the marriage and even beyond the grave. Thanks for watching.